talking about 5 types of abuse. I know in the previous speech I was going over funding more in child services and basically on how to restructure and make it better for the children, but I didn't go over the actual types of abuse. Every day in the U.S., 4 to 5 children die daily due to abuse and neglect. According to DoSomething.org, there's so many ways that a child could potentially lose their lives. So I'm going to go over with you on the different types of abuse and how they can affect you either long term or short term. It doesn't have to be just for children because it's a universal system, but we're talking about children. So with this information, I hope you'll be able to utilize it into the community so it can help others, and hopefully it potentially helps stop abuse. We'll be covering the 5 forms. The first one is physical abuse. Any intentional act to cause harm or trauma is considered physical abuse. Children experience the most physical abuse by adults. They become victims as well in most cases from domestic violence. It's not just kids, it can be adults too. But when we're talking about physical abuse, usually we're talking about children. If it's adults, that's considered domestic abuse. The longer that abuse occurs, the longer the effect has on that child, and the impact becomes more serious. For children, that looks like physical disabilities. That can mean from actual handicap to limbs being hurt, not being able to walk correctly. You can have vision loss from eye trauma or hearing loss from ear trauma. Next is going to be the sexual abuse. Sexual abuse does not just include physical contact, like as in penetration, grooming, things like that. It can also include looking, making someone feel uncomfortable, as well as meeting that person's sexual needs. It doesn't have to be physical. 1 in 9 girls and 1 in 53 boys experience sexual abuse before they turn 18, according to RAINN.org. Lasting effects can alter their behavior as well as their schooling, meaning their education. They can be unfocused and get distracted, and they could possibly display sexual abuse to others when they get older. In a lot of cases, when that happens, they've experienced abuse themselves, so they carry that on throughout their lives. Another form is emotional/verbal abuse. They kind of go hand in hand, as well as mental abuse, but they're 2 different things. Any abuse that's abuse other than physical abuse is considered that, such as criticism, manipulation, intimidation, or degrading that person and making them feel inadequate, and that affects their self-esteem. According to PreventChildAbuse.org, in 2018, there was 55,000 children that were counted as emotional abuse in their records. This can alter the person's emotions, causing distress, both mental and possibly physical, depending on how severe that abuse was and how long it was. We're going to go into mental abuse. That exposes another person to behavior that can cause psychological trauma, as in anxiety, chronic depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder. That's on the serious aspect of it. Mental abuse can be just as deadly as physical abuse, though, in some cases. Children who experience mental abuse are 3 times more likely to commit suicide later on in their lives, just because of all the trauma that they experience. The last one is going to be financial, and a lot of people don't talk about financial abuse when it comes to kids just because they don't have finances, but we're talking about from the ages of when they're born all the way up until they're 18, and although that they're not adults, they still have access to financial points in their life, whether that can be assets like something that they inherited, or something that they were gifted, or something that they have accumulated and that's theirs. That would mean restricting access to money or possessions that we're giving to them, parents stealing money from them that they have, restricting assets, punishing children from spending their money, and denying education for that child. What that would mean is a mom telling their daughter that they can't go to school, and that child wants to do that career because of money, and that could affect them in the long run. What financial abuse affects is they feel inadequate, they feel unsure of themselves due to the emotional abuse that comes with this. Financial abuse can gateway to other forms of abuse at all points of their lives. If they experience financial abuse when they're young, there is a high chance when they get into a regular relationship that they can be vulnerable to financial abuse. So, with that given said, it's not just up to parents and guardians to be able to look after children and the youth. Every person in the world has a responsibility to make sure this stuff doesn't go on. With the amount of data, literature, and resources that we have, I feel like we should be able to do better as a community. It's not just about minding our business and waiting for someone else to take care of it, because that's why we have statistics. That's why people are dying, because people don't pay attention to the issues that we have. This is humanity, and I feel like that's something that we need to work on. There's too many people dying for something that we can prevent very easily. Holding people accountable is another thing that we need to work on. And create a place where all walks of life can be unanimously living and not have to fear for their lives. And it shouldn't limit their creativity regarding that. If you or anyone experience any form of abuse, there is a hotline number that you can call. It's a 1-800 for a child, and that's 24 hours. If you or anyone else experiences abuse, you can call that number. It's 24/7, and it's confidential if you need to.